joy will not be a lasting celebration. They cannot make class struggle illegal, for class struggle follows objective laws.
This man devoted his life to combating apathy and ensuring equal rights for blacks and whites. In a perfect world, his struggle would be seen as noble. Sadly, in our world today, his fight was misunderstood, leading to his assassination before his 15-year-old daughter. Chris Hani's story is now. Chris Hani was born in '02 in South Africa from a poor family. Despite this, he still managed to go to school, attend secondary classes, and even go to university to study literature. But very quickly, he would be influenced by a certain Govan Mbeki, father of Thabo Mbeki, who was his childhood friend. Thabo Mbeki eventually became the president as his role evolved. Chris Hani will soon be influenced by this anti-apathy movement, truly fighting against white dominance over blacks, and he will join the Communist Party. This party was actually banned in South Africa at that time. So since the party is banned in South Africa, he will have to leave the country secretly to go to Zimbabwe, which was called Rhodesia at the time. From the external base in Zimbabwe, he will lead, along with others in the armed wing of the ANC, battles to truly destabilize the forces maintaining apathy. He will stand out as a European soldier, skilled in strategy. However, despite being a dedicated volunteer, someone who is on the ground and fighting, he particularly stood out for his ability to hold debates, for his capacity to engage, to confront opposition, to clearly articulate the reasons behind his struggle against apathy. And it must be said that at that time we really needed people like him, blacks who could hold public debates, who could explain the ins and outs, the reasons behind the validity of this anti-apathy struggle. So very quickly he began to gain some popularity within the Afro community. And in the year of the anti-apathy ban parties, the Mandelas are set free. Therefore, Chris returns to South Africa. Once he returns to South Africa, he is quickly elected as an executive within the ANC with a majority of votes. Because in the townships, in the ghettos, in the neighborhoods, in the black community, he is truly very, very, very respected. And so Chris Hani arrives and he quickly clarifies his stance. He is not there to be friendly with whites, which also irritates Thabo Mbeki. He is truly on a very rigorous, very pragmatic path. He does not want to be too friendly with them. If peace is needed, fine, but at what cost? He is not ready to lower his standards to speak politely. Thus, there's Thabo Mbeki, who is somewhat more, let's say, who smooths things over, and then there's Chris, who is really in a very aggressive stance. And of course, this stance is not liked to the powers that lead the country, which are pro-apathy, because he genuinely wants blacks to assert themselves like Steve Biko. His philosophy was for blacks to take control. He wanted blacks to have no complexes about whites. He wanted them to realize they share the same rights. Most importantly, he wanted blacks to know that South Africa is their land. Thus, this ideology created a real issue because the pro-apathy forces did not see it in a good light. Thabo Mbeki, on the other hand, was a bit more, well, so it is in this context that Chris manages to take action, rally the crowds, and distinguish himself as a charismatic speaker, but truly all that the Afro community needed at that moment. But as I mentioned, Chris did not make only friends. Of course, the South African state looked upon this unfavorably. Moreover, there were the far-right forces, the South African white supremacist groups, who considered him a serious threat. Thus, there was a party named the WB, headed by Eugène Terblanche, who strongly promoted the idea that whites are above blacks. The Germans, blacks are the lesser race. The flag was, if you like, a version of a swastika. In brief, they made Chris Hani the target, the main target for Abbott. So in this context, on April 10th, after the war, Chris Hani returns from an outing or activity, wanting to go home, parking his car with his daughter. And he is about to go home. That's when a Janus Wallace shows up with a firearm over there. Afterward, in the investigation, we discover that this person was very close to the WB, this white supremacist party, and furthermore, he wasn't even South African. He was an immigrant, Polish, who arrived in South Africa. But what further scandalized me is that this person was arrested. There were nearly 10,000 people who took to the streets. South Africans came out to protest. But really, it was quite incredible. Nelson Mandela called for calm. All the African leaders called for calm. But this man was arrested, tried, sentenced to death. After a while, his sentence was cut down to life in prison. Then it was reduced to 30 years. And just recently, a few years back, the guy was released because supposedly another inmate had assaulted him. It's important for me to share Christ's story, as like Steve Biko, he was a man who stood up for his community. But like many stories, the African leaders who rose to fight for their fellow countrymen, for their peers, often had a fate, very often a fate. Sad. Anyway, that's the story of Chris Hani. I hope you liked this video. Please do subscribe, like, and comment. We are forming a small community. We are close to 1,000 on the channel. That's big for me anyway. Please share the video. I'm also on TikTok. Until then, take care. I have a message that will take 30 seconds to share with you. If this is your first time here on this YouTube channel, it's a channel that aims to uplift Afro culture, to show our history, but also shining a light on the youth in our community who are fighting, who work day by day. Because very often in mainstream media, we don't talk about our youth in the right light. So with that in mind, I've launched several projects. I have a podcast where I regularly share episodes here. You'll see the link around. In this podcast, I bring attention to young African fighters, ambitious youth. I also created a mini documentary last summer at the end of the year where I connected with young fighters, young people in fish farming, young people playing football, young people who take photos, and this documentary is in the editing phase. It will be out soon, in about 2 weeks. I'm counting on you to watch the videos, share them, and give your opinions. It's not perfect, it's still in development because the short-term aim is to create the same project in the Paris region and in Guinea, in Burkina, Senegal, and Mali. In short, you see, let's work together to uplift our youth, to value the people in our community, to highlight those who are struggling while recalling history, the history that has been obscured, the history that isn't revealed to us. Together we can go very far. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment so that the algorithm can suggest our content to people in the community, to those who want to get to know the community better. Thank you so much. Bye. Vote well.